Hey everyone, and welcome to today's deep dive, where we'll be kind of exploring what creativity looks like now that, AI is becoming more and more advanced.
Yeah, it's definitely a question a lot of people are asking, especially as we see, AI creating art and poems and even composing music.
It's like all these things we used to think were uniquely human, you
Right.
know? So to help us kind of unpack all of this, we're
Mm.
diving into some work by Jonathan Kyle Hobson.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah, have you heard of him?
I have, yeah. He's an AI expert, right?
Yeah, he
So,
really seems to get this whole human-machine interaction, He's an analyst and a researcher, and I think even specializes in human experience.
yeah, that's a really interesting combination, actually.
Yeah, definitely. And in one of his recent articles, he mentions this AI-generated portrait that recently, get this, sold for $430,000. It's crazy, right? I can barely get my stick figures to stay within the lines, let alone command that kind of price tag. But it really makes you wonder, what's the difference,
Yeah.
Does the fact that a computer can create something aesthetically pleasing, does that mean it's truly creative?
That's the question, isn't it? Like, what even is creativity at this point? And Hobson points out that while AI can technically produce creative output, it doesn't really get the why behind it. You know what I mean?
Okay, yes. So what does that mean, in a practical sense?
Okay, well, think about it this way. An AI program like Daily 2, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have played around with that, it can create this stunningly realistic image of a rose from a simple text prompt,
Right.
but it doesn't understand the symbolism of the rose,
Mhm.
like the love and passion, the beauty that we as humans kind of associate with it.
It doesn't get it.
It can't appreciate the way the sunlight might hit the petals or the subtle variations in color and texture that a human artist would pick up on.
So it's missing that emotional depth that artists often kind of infuse into their work, right?
Exactly. Take, for example, Vincent van Gogh's, the sunflowers.
Yeah, yeah.
You can practically feel the artist's state of mind,
Yeah.
that vibrant energy just by looking at the brushstrokes.
Yeah.
And it's deeply personal and emotionally resonant in a way that I think AI-generated art just hasn't quite captured yet.
Yeah, it's like the difference between someone simply reciting the lyrics of a song,
Yeah.
versus someone pouring their heart and soul into every note.
Yes, exactly. It's that depth of experience, that understanding of context and meaning that I think still sets human creativity apart.
Okay, so I'm sure some of our listeners might be breathing a sigh of relief at this point, phew, we're still safe. But Hobson also throws in another interesting idea. What if, instead of viewing AI as this competitor to human creativity, what if we saw it as a collaborator?
Right. That co-creation model,
Yeah, yeah.
which he actually uses in his own work. It's interesting. Yeah.
Wow, and it's almost like having an incredibly fast, always-on brainstorming partner.
Totally.
Imagine feeding AI a creative block you're having, with a song or a design problem you're stuck on. It could generate countless variations, ideas you might never have thought of on your own, and then you can kind of build upon that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to think about it. Almost AI could become an extension of our own creative toolkit, right? But even if we accept that, there's still that question of, I don't know, that spark of originality?
Right.
Where does that come from? Because Hobson also talks about how both humans and AI ultimately draw from existing information to create something new.
Exactly. He actually quotes Vladimir Nabokov.
Oh.
I don't know if you've read him.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
The author of Lolita.
Mm-hmm.
And Nabokov said that reality is neither objective nor subjective, but a kind of remix.
Ooh, I like that.
So it's we take our experiences, the things we've seen, read, heard,
Right.
and kind of blend them in new ways.
So it's like that saying, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right, exactly.
But then, where does that leave us? Are we all just super sophisticated plagiarists?
Well, and that's kind of Hobson's point, is that
Yeah.
this applies to AI as well.
Yeah.
All of those impressive outputs are still based on these massive data sets that they're trained on.
Right, right.
So even a seemingly original AI-generated image is ultimately a synthesis of, countless existing images and data points.
Okay, so both humans and AI are drawing from this well of existing information, but does that mean there's no such thing as true originality?
Well, I mean, that's a question, right? If philosophers have been debating that for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what AI does is it forces us to confront that question in a new light.
Totally. Yeah.
It challenges our, I don't know, our romantic notions of creativity as this purely human, almost mystical thing.
Yeah, and maybe that's not a bad thing, right? Maybe this helps us kind of move beyond this idea of a creativity hierarchy and kind of recognize that it can manifest in different ways.
Absolutely. And this is where Hobson brings in this idea of the experience gap,
Hmm.
which is basically like the difference in how humans and AI, experience the world.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because like me, I can eat a taco and have all those, sensory experiences.
Hmm.
The taste, the texture, the smell, the salsa dripping down my chin, all of it.
Right, exactly.
And it's tough to imagine AI really grasping that kind of multi-sensory, emotionally charged experience.
At least not yet.
Yeah, for sure, not yet. But Hobson also argues that, this gap might not be as wide as we think.
Okay, interesting.
He talks about how language shapes our reality,
Right.
how we use words to kind of interpret and make sense of our experiences.
Totally.
And in a way, like, isn't that what AI is doing with algorithms? Like processing information, making connections, and then like translating it into a different form. Whether it's an image or a piece of music or even code, it's still a form of like interpretation, just through a different lens.
It's like our brains are translating electrical impulses into like images and sounds and emotions, and AI is translating code into creative output. It makes you wonder if those processes are really so different after all.
Yeah, it's a fascinating parallel, and it leads us to another interesting concept that Hobson explores, this idea of post-nihilism.
Okay, I'll admit that one sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah. Well,
Like, what exactly is post-nihilism and what does it have to do with AI?
okay, so like nihilism in a really simplified sense is, like the belief that life is inherently meaningless. Post-nihilism, though, isn't about like dwelling in that meaninglessness. It's about acknowledging that while there might not be some like grand, predetermined purpose to life, that doesn't mean we can't create our own meaning. It's about finding value in the journey itself and the striving, the growing, the evolving.
So how does that relate to AI? It's not like AI is out there, searching for meaning in a plate of chilaquiles or something.
Right. But the connection Hobson draws is interesting. He argues that AI, like us post-nihilists, is on this continual journey of becoming. Each iteration, each advancement, it isn't about reaching some final destination of like perfect intelligence. It's about the process, the learning, that constant striving to overcome limitations.
So instead of focusing on some kind of, I don't know, existential crisis, it's about embracing the journey and recognizing the value in each step along the way.
Exactly. And Hobson even links this to Teddy Roosevelt's famous speech about the strenuous life.
I love that speech.
Yeah, where he talks about the importance of embracing challenge and pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones. He sees a parallel with AI, this constant evolution, this relentless pursuit of new capabilities.
It really reframes how we think about AI. It's not some static entity here to, steal our thunder. It's evolving right alongside us. And if AI can embrace that kind of strenuous journey, well, maybe we should be taking notes.
Right. And this brings us back to that initial question of what creativity looks like in the age of AI.
Yeah,
Maybe instead of viewing it as this either scenario, human creativity versus artificial creativity, it's more about recognizing different types of creative instruments.
I like that. Different tools for different jobs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Humans, we have the instrument of lived experience. Those messy, beautiful, heartbreaking, hilarious moments that shape our understanding of the world. AI, on the other hand, has algorithms and data, this vast sea of information that it can process and recombine in ways we're only beginning to understand.
Then maybe it's not about which instrument is better, but how those instruments can work together to create something, truly new and exciting.
Exactly. And that's what I hope our listeners will take away from this deep dive. Don't fear the algorithm. Instead, think about how you can leverage these new tools, these new instruments, to enhance your own creativity. What happens when you combine the emotional intelligence, the empathy, the nuanced understanding of a human with the sheer processing power and pattern recognition of AI? That's a future I'm excited to explore.
Me too. My mind is definitely spinning with possibilities. A huge thank you to Jonathan Kyle Hobson for giving us so much to think about. And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your own creative fire. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep creating.